That way I can just remember it for myself. Okay, so if you haven't seen it, let me go ahead and show you a Power BI report that Scott had created for me, and I thought was it really kind of like got me excited again, because I had told him I'd lost faith in Power BI and I didn't want to use it. But you all might have seen this report. Let me move this guy over here. And this report was a simple reaching into our PO table, and he was able to create it so it had somewhat of a dynamic system. See how I can change the years from 2018, 2019, 2000. I can select how much data I want to look at. Let's say I want to look at, for example, the vendor Harris, and there's Harris Computer Corporation, and I can see that from 2020 to 21 that there is 12,000 invoiced, and we still have 24,000 remaining to be invoiced. Okay, whether or not this is a great demonstration or not, it was just interesting to me that he can like do this one. I don't know how fast he did it, but I could now do this one relatively fast, and what I've learned. But he seemed to do it relatively fast. When I asked him the question though, is how is the data being updated? He didn't know how to get to that point, and he was stuck there. I didn't know how to get to that point of getting the data updated, and so for the past 3 days, him and I have just been banging on the system until we've figured it out, and we had to just do a lot of reading. So let's start off with how does Power BI, how does it work? In this environment, all this is one of the Office 365 apps. It's Power BI. Now, it doesn't come with the standard suite of Word, Excel, OneDrive, and Outlook. So if you want to use it, you can see I'm using a trial. It's 49 days left on my trial. It's $10 a month. Anybody in our departments could absolutely choose to use this if you want it. It's totally worth it. Even if it was just a couple of reports that you're playing with, it just expands our capacity. So in this particular one, this report is actually being pulled from what's called a static data set. Scott uploaded the data into this Power BI online environment, and this report is running on that data. Because of that, this data will never be updated. It's possible to take Power BI and to tie it into a database. But you can imagine, let's just imagine that this was our reporting server, and report, I think we have a reporting server somewhere. There we go. We have QSS SQL, I'm sorry, not QSS, it's SQL Server Reporting Services is another example of a reporting services. This is running on the database that, one of our databases. And because this is local, this server has access to our databases. I mean, that would make sense, right? But this is not local. This is on the cloud somewhere. So how can you get that environment to connect to something local? Now, one way is you can use a VPN tunnel, but that would be kind of like, can you imagine if we had to get the systems teams involved and all that stuff? Another way of doing it, and this is totally, in my opinion, this is totally a violation of every security feature or fundamental I've known from a firewall perspective. You know that any one of us could install an application on one of our VMs, like go to my PC, and then we can hack into not hack into the network. We can connect to the network from anywhere in the world through go to my PC, right? We don't even have to go through a firewall, because what this application that's running on the computer, go to my PC, it's checking into a web server through probably some what would you call it? What's the secure port for HTTPS? Is that 443?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably doing a 443 connection, and then it's transmitting that connection through port 443. And so it bypasses the firewall. And people that are like in technology on John's side, they're always scanning the network for those types of apps. Well, that's exactly what Microsoft created, but because it's Microsoft, we're okay with it. What they do is this is where Power BI is out on the internet somewhere. And I don't even know what the heck the service bus is, ignore that one. If it were to try to get to the database, it would get blocked by the firewall. And that's what that dashed line represents. But all you have to do is install a really small program. They call it a gateway to make it sound really fancy, right? A gateway. And that gateway, when I installed it, and anybody can install this one, it's called an on-premise gateway.
So is it like do you do it on a server, or do you have to do it on a desktop?
You could do it on anything. Now, if I did it on a desktop, then and I shut my desktop down and somebody was trying to get a data refresh and my desktop was down, then of course it would say, oh, the gateway's down, right?
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, what I could do is I could throw it on my VM. That's never down. In reality, though, I'm going to put the gateway on the SQL Server database.
Yeah. So, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, here was one of the biggest problems that I encountered, found, or just realized is when you install a gateway, and it doesn't matter where you install it, all it is it's like that go to my PC. It's a little program running that's just telling Office 365, here I am. I'm going to let you through our firewall without any restrictions. It's crazy. But you have to sign in. And when you sign in, it has to be associated with a Microsoft account. And then so as an example right here, once you've installed it, you'll never have to do this again. I'm just kind of showing you what I had to do. And like all Microsoft tools, it takes forever. Okay.
Jim, quick question. So your AD account allow you to install gateway on the server?
So first of all, I got this gateway installed on my local computer.
Oh, okay.
Now, could I install on the server? No, I couldn't. Tuan would have to do that for me.
Okay. If you install this on your local computer, doesn't the when the system people scan it, will they kind of know that you have like a hole in the network? Because basically that is like something that you expose to the whole network.
Yeah.
So would that be something that they scan and then plug out?
Yeah. Not that I don't mean to say this in a braggadocious way, but I've talked with Vince and with Mike Weber, and I believe I know more now about the gateway than they do. Just because I've been pounding on, they admitted to me, hey, we don't have time for this one. Right now we have 2 gateways. Huang Ho has a gateway, and who else has one? Mohini has a gateway. So, and I asked Mike, hey, could I create a gateway? And at first he's like, oh yeah, I'll spin up a server for you. And we'll create a server so you can install the gateway, because I guess, if you don't really understand what you're doing, this gateway, it sounds like so official, right? It's a gateway. You need a server for that one. The reality is it is just this small little teeny app that's running, that's constantly pinging Microsoft to say, hey, you can use this hole in the firewall. So Vince's team already knows that we have gateways. They're okay with it. And whether or not they understand the risks, I don't know. But what I can tell you is, even though I see the risks, I don't see anything wrong with it, because today I can run data reports on my computer, save them to Excel, and put them on OneDrive, right? Well, I'm exposing the data in the exact same way I would be exposing this one through. So as long as the data that I'm exposing doesn't have any sensitive information, then I don't think it's a problem. I know for early learning, they are exposing student data, but it's behind our firewall. I'm not firewall, our domain, our Microsoft domain. So I don't think anybody has a problem with it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to ask you, I didn't mean to ask as an intrusion. It's just that we're working with, like me and Sonia and I, we work on SharePoint, and SharePoint, they with the newer generation, they use what is it? They use a form. They use form that rely on the gateway. Power App, that's what it's called, Power App. Yep. And Power App use the gateway, and that is where that's how I came up. came across gateway, that's where I'm stuck, because when I start reading it, it sounds like, oh, it's like a little bit more than I
Yeah.
can wrap my head around it. So that's why I know, that's all.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you were to use Power App and you wanted to connect to a local database, like on this picture right here, then you would need a gateway to allow it to connect through. And that was where I was stuck, because I wanted data that was locally. I didn't want to just have to upload data every time I wanted to give a report. So you'll notice that I wanted to make a name for this one just so that there was no question what was going on. So I call this Jim's Test Gateway on Laptop for CODS. Okay, nobody else in the world would have called their gateway that. What I found out was, because I just signed in, and then you guys saw me sign in, when I go to my Power BI on my Office 365, you can see I'm logged in up here. Microsoft knows that I have installed a gateway because it's associated with my account. And that's how the communication happens. If I go into settings here and I click on manage gateways, it sees that gateway right here. Now, one of the cool things is I could create the gateway, but I can add Charles as an administrator of the gateway. So then Charles can use my gateway as well. So he doesn't have to set up his own gateway or our own gateway. And as a matter of fact, like when I was researching this one, they suggest that if, like, as an organization, SCCOE, we should just have one gateway for all of us to use instead of each person having their own gateway. That kind of becomes like almost redundant, right? So right now, Vince's team's concept is every gateway needs its own server. Like I said, I'm probably going to put our gateway on the SQL Server anyway. So, I'll just let Mike know what I'm doing, and I think he'll be fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just one point real quick. And I think when I did, and it looks like you and I stuck on the same thing too. And one of the things that they told us was, like, if you have this, whatever gateway you set up, bound to yours, and in case something happened to you, God forbid, I'm not saying anything, but it bound to your account. So something happened to you or the account, that whole, all the connection, everything will be broken. So that's why.
Unless I add you as an administrator.
Oh, yeah.
Because I could add as many people as an administrator, and if I'm out, then you now can administer that gateway.
Oh, good point.
Okay. Now, what you'll notice is on this gateway, there was nothing on this gateway that I indicated what database to connect to. It is just, and this one took me a long time to understand too, it's just an app that's communicating back and forth to Microsoft. It's tied to my Microsoft account. That's how it knows to show it up under my settings, manage gateways. And then I could now add people as administrators if they want to use it as well. So that's the first part. I can click on test connections, and all it does is says online, you're good to go. There's nothing fancy on it. So I'm like, okay, I've got a gateway. I clicked on this little guy right here, and I saw add data source. And I'm like, oh, what is this? And you can see I started creating all these data sources right here. And like, here's this data source, Jim's CARP connection. And I did that one. It was connection successful. And I just kept on adding data sources, and it meant nothing to me because it wasn't doing anything. It was like, okay, so I added a data source, but how do you, I want to create a report off the data source. That was probably the biggest problem that I ran in. And for those of you on the development side, you probably already knew this one. And I guess I should have just asked you, but I don't know if I was just too proud or what. But in order to use reporting servers in general, I think Crystal Reports is the same way, as well as SQL Server reporting services. You actually have to create the report using a desktop app. And like Supreet, is that true for most reporting systems? Or Tram or Ravi or anybody?
For SQL reporting services, yes, like there is an extension within Visual Studio that helps you to develop the reports. I'm not sure about Crystal Reports right now because I have not used it in like 10, 15 years. So I don't know.
Crystal has the same, has the extension in Visual Studio, and it has a standalone. So you have to create a report.
Okay. Okay. Now there was this little feature, and I'm gonna like, because if you guys do play with this, you'll find this one. I can actually create something by picking a published data set. Let's say I'm going to do this one, create, and I can literally create a report right here. That's something that's new that I think is powerful. But the problem that I have, and I'm going to go back to create, I didn't know how to get a published data set. I had created my gateway. I had created a data source, but I couldn't get a published data set. And that was the thing that was eluding me. And I'm going to show you, how do I get a published data set? Okay, so that's, once you have a published data set, sure, you can create pretty simple reports on the online environment if you want, or you can do it the same way I'm doing it right here. I don't know how to use the system extremely well. I'm not going to create anything complicated. I'm just going to show you what, how relatively easy it can be to get data. So the first thing I'm going to do is get data. I'm going to get data from a SQL server. It's going to ask me my credentials. So QARP, SCCOE.org. The database I'm going to get is QSSKOI 4390. And there's nothing fancy here. As long as I have access to a database, I can do it. If I had access to Central DB, I could do that as well. Do you see this difference between import and direct query? I figured this one out too. This one took us about an hour to figure this one out. If I click import, what it will do, it's going to reach out to that database and suck it into my computer. Basically, it's going to import it. If I load this report on the line, it's going to take that data set and push the whole data set up to online. This is very similar to what Scott did. And this is what I'm going to use, by the way. If I do direct query, what that does is it opens, I shouldn't say it opens, whenever someone is using that report, they'll be able to click refresh and it will literally go back to the database, refresh through that gateway and come back. With what I'm going to show you right now, this data set, which is it's the QSS data, this only refreshes nightly. So it doesn't really matter to me that I have a real-time connection. So I'm going to do an import. Okay, so I'll click OK on that one. All right, and then you could see it's got all my tables. So I'm going to, I don't even know what this is, but QCC signers. That's pretty cool. I don't even know what that is, but looks like some, Chris, do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's signers.
I mean, did you
signers?
Yeah,
did you create that or?
Yeah, that's the table that I made for QCC authorized signers.
Perfect, because I was just thinking about like how could we share that information? It's in a database. Now I'm going to create a way to share it. So I've got this data selected. I'm going to load it. I could transform the data. In this case, I don't need to. So I'm just going to do a straight load of the data. This thing says there are pending changes in your query that have not been applied. That's going to go away because what's going on right now is Power BI is basically setting up all my environments. And in that little process, it applied the changes. Where that little error message was coming from is actually coming from this transform data area. And I didn't do any data transformations and it just took a while for it to know. So I'm going to click close and apply. That is what was causing that error message to pop up. It's not really an error. It's just part of that process. So I can look down here at this shows me my data. I've only got one table. I didn't select multiple tables, but I could do joins here just like you would do in any other system. Crazy thing is this totally reminds me of Microsoft Access in the way it looks. There's my data right here. And then I'm going to, on the visualizations, I'm just going to do something really simple, like put a table on there. And let's go ahead and put district name, first name. Let's get rid of let's do the full name and then email. Let's see what that looks like. All right. So that looks good, huh? So I'm done with that one. I'll just go. I don't even want to, I don't know what I'm doing here. So let me save that one. I don't really have to save it, by the way, but I'm just going to do it for district contacts. QSS. Okay, and I'll tell you why I don't have to save it, because really what I want to do is publish it. When I publish it, you'll notice up at the top, I'm signed in as Jim Carrillo at jcarrillo@sccoe.org. That's how my local Power BI knows that what my Office 365 account is. So when I click publish, I don't have to do any connections, right? It's just, oh, and it's asking me, where do I want to do it? Do I want to put it in my Teams or my workspace? So I'll just click my workspace, and it's now pushing that. And it's this PBIX is the file name type. It's pushing that up to the, I don't want to call it the cloud, but to Power BI 365 environment. Then it's just saying, hey, you can, whatever. If I click here, I can open it, but I'm going to do it in a different way. So that is all I had to use this environment for. Now, again, another sticking point I did is, you just saw me do a direct connection to the database, right? I did not associate that connection in any way with the gateway. And that's where I couldn't figure out what the next step was. So let me close this puppy. And I'll go back to my online environment. If I click on my workspaces, I should see there's that district contacts. This district contacts is the graph I just made, right? There it is. And then if I go back, oops, I'm sorry, go to my workspaces. This is the database. And you can see it's got the picture of the database. This right here was what eluded me. There's this little, I don't even know what it's called, schedule refresh button right here. So I clicked on that one, and I clicked on gateway connection. And do you see right here where it says that the data source for this should be, and it says that it maps to? All I have to do is click on this one, and I'm going to do add to gateway. And I'll type this one, and I'm going to say this is a, what do we call it? It's called a data source. I'll just call it a data source for the contacts list on QSS ARP. Okay. And it knows, it pulled this information from that Power BI when I was working in there. This is what I had typed in before. It's going to ask me for an authentication method. I put my username, and this is me personally because I have access to that database. And then my password. And then these are the advanced settings, which I don't do. The privacy levels of settings for this data source, I'm going to leave it open in my organization. I'll click add. And then now when I click on this, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I go back to, where is that one? I do, now you're catching me on, where did I lost this one, manage gateways. I did add a data source for contacts list on QSS. This connection was successful. And now I got to somehow associate that with that one. This is where I feel like it was a little bit funky.
I think it's running, right?
Oh, maps to, I got to change now maps to this. There we go. And then when I click apply, now when I go back to it, that one I felt like that, I wish that would have just said, hey, it knew I wanted to create one. Why didn't it map it? So if I click on this, you'll see that that is now mapped to it. See how right here? So for some reason, it's just a little clunky on that one. Now,
so you can set how often you want it refreshed.
Yeah, on the scheduled refresh right now, I am not keeping my data up to date. I could keep it up to date on daily. I can say at 7 a.m. And then, so now at 7 a.m., it's going to refresh. I can add another time and say, at 10 p.m. But in this case, this is their data only refreshes once a day, right? So I don't really care. When I ask the early learning folks, they're doing reports off of their student information system. So what they have it doing is every 2 hours, it refreshes the data. So every 2 hours, it goes into the student information system, pulls their reports, sucks it in, and then that way the customers get to see refreshed data. So let's just go ahead and take a look at that one more time to make sure that my settings saved. So it's right now, it's refreshing every day at 7 a.m. Okay, so we're going to do a test on this one. Okay, Chris, you game for being the one to test with?
Oh, you want me to add something?
So I want you to open up your, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my workspaces and I'm going to share this district contacts with Chris. And I'm going to give specific people, and I don't want Chris to share this report. I just want him to be able to view it. And I'm going to go ahead and CDDA. All right, send. Now the odd thing is everything in Power BI is based on cache. So you may have to actually click on that link from your email. Let's go ahead and if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen and show us what you see when you get that email.
Sure.
Jim, is there an option like when you refresh, it can send that data to some users as an Excel or a PDF file?
That wouldn't be in, so that data refresh that I showed you is for the reports, but when
Okay.
you create the report,
Okay.
you can do a schedule, like you can have a schedule set up to like notify you or something like that. But
Okay.
but I don't know about if it can generate a PDF file. I mean, I know it could, but to automatically do that.
I think it should because the SQL reporting services is offering that. I'm pretty sure they must have included that functionality in Power BI as well.
I would hope so. And Power BI is supposedly newer than SQL Server reporting services, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So go ahead and open this report. Now I'm kind of like walking you through this with what I know is the first thing it's doing is it's checking to see if Chris is logged in, and he's not. So Chris, you're going to need to thank you for choosing my, let me do it let me take you there a different way. Go to Microsoft.com. And I'm taking it you probably don't use your online mail, right?
Every once in a while.
So click sign in. Okay, now go back to that link in your email. Okay, and then now I can tell up on the top right-hand corner that you're logged in. So now it's going to ask you to go ahead and just create that account. So down below, yeah. And then just click get started. So what that's doing is it's giving you a 50 whatever day free account. Okay.
You're so funny.
Yeah, big data. I remember. It's like watching ketchup come out of a bottle. Hey, I only got 50 days. What the hell is that? Okay, so you can see that data, right? Okay, now watch this one. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen sharing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change some of my data. And that was in COI. What was the file called? QCC signers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to change this last name for Efren Robles. Actually, could you tell me what the first name is on the top of your list? I think it's indexed by something. On your
Yeah. Let me check.
It's probably indexed by last name or full name. Is it Alvaro Meza?
Hold on. I think he's Alan Rock, right?
Huh? Here,
Okay.
that's okay. I can look at it. What Chris is doing is he's just opening up that thing, and you can see that the first name is Avtar Gill at Alam Rock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find that in here and look for avatar. First name. Here we go. And I'm just going to put a space dash right there, just as something that I can see. And I'm going to save that. All right. That's not what I want. What is it? No changes were saved. Oh, I forgot to click out. Okay, save. Select the columns that will be used from the where clause for updates. Shit, I don't know. Well,
Change the title, maybe it's better. Because I think they concatenate the first name and last name, make it into full name, right?
oh, is that what you think it is?
No, it's actually, yeah, it's actually a separate column.
Okay, so let's go with that. I'll do it in district name. Oh, I gotta look at something on district name. Will that work? Save data edits. This is not doing this. This is not how come I can't edit this? Do you have the ability to edit it, Chris?
Yeah.
Could you add something like in there, like a space? You're gonna have to do it through DB Visualizer though.
Yeah. I'll just add.
You might
I'll
not
just
have
add-
given me.
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's add something to Avatar Gill's district or title or something.
Okay. And just tell me when you're done, and I'll refresh the data. This is QCC signers, right?
Yep.
Avatar. I'm not even in the right place. And did you update that record yet?
Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm just launching.
Oh, okay. All right. While Chris is doing that, does anybody have any questions yet?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. So the report you share with other people, they all have to be in the same network or have to be in a.
In this case, because I'm in Microsoft 365, Office 365, currently the way John's team has set this up is you can only share things with people in SCCOE. If they change that setting, you would be able to share it with anybody that has a Microsoft 365 account. And that's when I talked to Mike Weber, he said that that is something that they could definitely do if they saw the need for it.
But that would mean we assume that all people have Microsoft 365. Some
No,
people-
so that's a good point, because I was struggling with that too. So for example, let's say that you were talking about somebody that that didn't have an Office 365 account, right?
Right.
All they would have to do is go apps.power BI. They would just go here and then they would create already have an account, or right here, try it for free. And then they can create their own Power BI account, just like they can create their own LinkedIn account, whatever, right? It's just a online service is all it is. Okay, so Chris, I'm watching what he's doing. I'm refreshing this data and I'm looking at Avatar Gill right here. All right, and what I'm going to be showing you is that when the data is updated in the database, it will not affect online. And do you guys know why it won't affect online?
Because the update happened at 7 o'clock or something.
That's right, because the update isn't scheduled till 7 a.m. And this took us a long time to be able to prove, because the mistake I had made this morning was I was doing a direct connect. And when I was doing a direct connect and I shared that report, then that person that I shared it with can click refresh and it would literally update the data. The reason why that's terrible, or it could be terrible, is if your report's being shared with 1,000 people and 1,000 people have the ability to do a refresh of data at any time, you can hose your database.
All right.
So, okay, so I see Avatar Gill. What did you change?
District name.
Alum Rocky Mountain. Very cool. Okay, so you see that one right there. And I see that changes right here. I'm going to go online and I'm going to refresh this results. And when I click refresh, it doesn't change. Chris, could you confirm that when you do your refresh, it doesn't change? And you could do it either at the top right where there's a refresh link, or you can even refresh the page and it should do the same thing.
Oh,
And
this report has the option on the top, export. Probably that would
Yes.
do it.
You can analyze Excel, PDF, PowerPoint. I liked the PowerPoint one. I thought that was kind of cool because if you did graphs or something like that and you're doing this, I don't think any of us would have to do this one. This would be something more like for the superintendent's office, but they were creating graphs for the superintendent on budgets. This will export those graphs directly to PowerPoint.
Yeah, it did not refresh.
Okay, so it did not refresh. If I go to my workspace and I see this district context QSS, no, yeah, that's it. See this button right here? If I click on that, that initiates a manual refresh of the data. So I'll click on that and it's currently refreshing. And you can see it's preparing for refresh. I'll save this one just for the sake of, you guys can see that one. Okay, and then let's go back to, it's already done for you.
Mhm.
And now it says, Avatar Gill, mine didn't refresh yet. So I just click on the refresh button. And there it is, Rocky Mountain. And so now that's a way to be able to, so I've done two things, or I've done actually many things. The first thing was that I created a gateway, and the gateway is not difficult. It was just, it's a small little application that's running. Really, we only need one for our entire department. We should only need one for SCCOE. And I'm going to put that one on our, it could be on any computer inside the network. Any computer that has the ability to query the database, that gateway could be running on. That's why I throw it on my laptop, it's fine. The second thing I did was, in order to utilize that gateway, I had to create a report with the desktop application. And I did not tie that report to the gateway. I just used the same data source. I should say I just used a data source. And then once I uploaded that report, I connected that data source to the gateway. And then it becomes a persistent connection. So now I can share that out to Chris. Now Chris has access to that information. As soon as that data is refreshed, it just happens and things are good.
So I guess it depends on the type of data and your users, whether you do the live query or you do the data load with the refresh, like on a schedule or not. I guess if it was like financial data, you might, and you really wanted to know at the minute, like what was in there.
Yeah.
Then I guess you might do the live query.
Well, like for a lot of the things that the development team is working on, Ravi and Donna created a program called Tracker. And what this does is it tracks inventory. So someone goes online and enters the inventory, and let's say they want to run a report. Well, Ravi has the ability now to create the report in Power BI and do a live connection so that whatever they just entered will show up in the report. For any reports coming out of QSS's CARP tables, well, we only update that once a day anyway, so there's no real reason to have a live connection to that. And if you don't have a live connection, your speed of reports will be faster.
This is how you're envisioning a SWAN project now? So this is.
So this is, yeah, that's, so what the SWAN project is going to follow very similar to Data Zone. Now, and this took me a long, don't think that this took me days to figure this stuff out. So you noticed how when I shared that report to Chris, he had to log in with a Power BI account, right? Well,
Mhm.
that means that everybody we share our reports with have to log into a Power BI account. And the answer to that is no. What has to happen is whatever person, it could be a person, Chris, or system. If a system wants to see that Power BI account, that system has to authenticate into Microsoft, right? And
Mhm.
so what Data Zone is doing, and what I would see the Swan project is going to do, is when Eric and the team are creating a login, and that login has one ID for Microsoft. So even though 10,000 people can log into Data Zone, all of the reports are generating through that one ID validation. So now the limitation with that is that means people cannot use this environment to see their reports. We have to create the environment to display the reports.
Like they're embedding these reports, Power BI reports in Data Zone projects the similar way, right?
Exactly, exactly. Now,
Pretty exciting.
there is another option, and it's the same option that Ravi's done with SQL Server reporting services. We can install Power BI on QSS SQL New, making a Power BI server. We have the licenses. As it turns out, we pay for the licenses with the current version of SQL Server. Of course, if we have the licenses and we're building our reports there, we can then publish those reports wherever we want. There is no cost associated with that one, no user account. When I asked Data Zone why they chose to go the route of the Office 365 versus their own server, their answer was, we just never considered the server. And I don't hold that against them. They're racing ahead trying to figure something out, but so they don't even know whether or not that would have been better. They just chose the online account environment, in which case they're going to have to do that authentication. I don't know the answer, which one's better. I am still going to install Power BI server on the server because I would like to play with that to see the scalability of that. In which case it would be very similar, Ravi, to how you've implemented the reports using SQL Server reporting services, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So that was the question I was going to ask. So I know we are moving past Crystal reports. What's the future? Is it Power BI for us or SSRS? Looks like we are doing both, right?
Well, I'm going to defer to Ravi on that one. What do you think?
As soon as we get licenses, we could go Power BI, because anyway, Data Zone is also using Power BI to embed the reports within the application. So we could, once we have all those licenses, we could start using Power BI as a reporting platform. So
now, what I don't know, Supreet, is maybe SQL Server reporting services has more of a like a report feel to it, whereas Power BI has more of a analytical feel to it. In which case, we might say, oh, we want to use SQL Server reporting services for this look in Power BI for that one. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that. So, but if in fact Microsoft is not putting much attention to SQL Server reporting services and focus on Power BI, then I think we should move to Power BI.
Yeah, that would be better. I'm just asking so that we know what are we going to learn, what we should put our energy in.
Yeah.
Power BI is a better option.
So that right there, I went to I've been doing this research for a while, for over a year now. Charles, probably you remember, I sent you a list of like 20 websites on what to use for a dashboard. And I've been researching them. I was so certain that Tableau was going to be the direction that I chose. We're going Tableau. That's the industry standard. Sat down with Ganesh and I asked him, how did Data Zone land on Power BI? Why did you choose that? And he was really honest. He said, we were having a team meeting and I told everybody, raise your hand if you know Tableau, and nobody raised their hand. Said, raise your hand if you know Power BI, and 3 people raised their hand. And he says, we're going with Power BI. And he says, sometimes you make the decision based upon what your team knows. And so with that, what I realized was I might as well leverage that momentum. And we should also go with Power BI. So that way, anything we learn can help them, anything they learn can help us. And then we just have a standard system. So to me, it made sense.
Plus
Yeah,
it's
I think-
Microsoft.
Yeah, I
And-
think that that's the same response that I gave you to Jim.
Yeah.
And my response I remember was we are Microsoft camp, and everything we do is Microsoft. So if we have to choose one over the other, we may as well go with Power BI. And I think what held us back at that time was because we didn't have any license, and nobody want to take a lead on that. That's why we spend our time on the things that are free. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in my heart, I always know that whatever Microsoft have is what we're going to use.
Yeah, and that was what was so remarkable to me to find out that all this time, all of our database servers have Power BI licenses. It costs us nothing to install it. Now, when it comes to the online environment, yes, that's going to cost us $10 a month, and I'm totally fine with that because I think at least internally, it's a great way for us to test reports, to share them. I mean, think about that one. When Robbie's creating a report,
Is it free with the standard, standard version as well, or only the enterprise version, the Power BI?
it is. You're talking about the server.
Yeah, the server.
It's only with enterprise.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's kind of funny how we just downgraded that one database to standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I was thinking the same thing.
yeah, that's okay. Because even if we end up going to Power BI, we can just create one report server with a Power BI on it, and it can query off of other databases.
Did you say $10? That's it?
No, the online version, if you want to see, like I shared with Chris, that's $10.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanted to make shared accounts for different districts, you would one account for each district. So it'd be
Yeah,
like $10.
if you were sharing it in that way, right?
Yeah.
But we're gonna, if we did go with the online environment, we would do it the way Data Zone's doing it and create a web wrapper so that the user doesn't have to log into Office 365. Now, there's another license that exists, and Microsoft is wonderful with these licenses, and they call it a Premier license. And with the Premier license, it's online license. You can create any report and you can share it with people, and they don't need to have a account. You know how much that license costs? $6,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy. So that's what Data Zone thought that they were going to have to pay until they figured out that technique. I don't want to call it a hack because Microsoft is okay with you doing it. Microsoft just will never tell you that you can do it because, of course, they want you to buy everybody a license.
I haven't spent a lot of time to it, but from what you just described, we can have like one central DB or something, and then we have, like a scheduler or something to just dump out the file in Excel or something and make the connection there too. So
yes, if you're talking about like a data warehouse type of reporting, you're totally right. We don't need to have a persistent connection. But even if we were talking about real-time reporting, things that the development team are working on, we can use, like, for example, on the QSS SQL New, what do they call that? A data connection? When you connect from one database to another database? Anyways, I think they call it, the term is a data connection. And then that way, as far as Power BI thinks, they think the data is on the local database, but really it's actually connected to an external database. So it's totally possible for us to set only one Power BI server up and still do real-time reporting. But so one of this is another vision I have is, so when Ravi's creating reports, what I can see is he would create a report and he can just share it out with the team through the online environment. And then we can look at the report and say, oh, you know what, you misspelled this, or oh, you did the grouping, or we could say it looks perfect. Once we've then validated the report, he can then publish that to the application. So instead of publishing it to the application and then having us review it, it could be in a working environment. All right, well, that was it. Thank you for joining me. I was really excited today to have to crack that nut. Cool. And hopefully we can play around with it. And I'm not too sure yet what we're going to do with it, but I do know that that's going to have value, especially in QSS department.
Using your setup, I think what we can do is we can actually, I still have the window, what is it? The old window 95 or something on my desktop. We can make that, we can put the gateway in there. And
You
then
could do that
don't
too,
have-
yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about your laptop, right? Just
Well, you're right. We could do that one. What I'm going to actually do is on the server, the SQL server, it's a Windows-based server. I'm just going to throw the gateway on that server
all right.
because it's always got to be up anyways. All right. Have a
Right.
good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.